middle equations, okay? Everyone, we should have this paper, okay? It's up here on this desk, all right? So there's some steps that we need to talk about for solving middle equations, all right? Okay, there's some steps that we need to solve. All right, so step 1, okay, we're going to identify you want to identify the variable you are asked to solve for. Okay, so identify the variable you are asked to solve for. Okay, so let's say it's like we need to solve for x, or we need to solve for a, or we need to solve for b, or we need to solve whatever letter they use for the variable you need to solve for. That's what you need to identify first. All right. Second step. Okay, we want to. So you want to begin to isolate that variable by moving everything away from it. By using the inverse operations. Okay. Okay, so you want to begin to isolate that variable by moving everything away from it by using your inverse operations. Okay. This is pretty much like we've been doing for solving equations and even for solving inequalities. Okay, you're still moving stuff over, you're still trying to get that variable by itself, but now there's going to be more than just one variable. Okay, like I said, we'll look at it in the examples. Okay, inverse operations are important. Okay, underline that. All right, we're going to make a small little chart so you can kind of see what the inverse is. Inverse operations chart. Okay. So for addition, right, the inverse would just be subtraction. Okay. For subtraction, the inverse would be addition. Right, so if I have, let's say I had like plus something, right, the way I get rid of it, if I had to do the inverse of it, was a subtraction. So I had to subtract that in order to get rid of it on one side. Okay, and we've talked about this before. All right, you have multiplication. The inverse would be division. If you have division, the inverse would be multiplication. And then we haven't seen this, but if we have exponents, you would use the roots to get rid of it. Okay, we haven't seen that yet, but just write it down so you have it. Alright, and our last step, okay, if the variable you are trying to solve for is negative, then divide it by 1. Or sorry, by -1. So I said we have negative x, right, by itself. We got to divide that by -1 so we can get rid of the negative sign. Okay, we've done this before too. Alright, so if the variable you're trying to solve for is negative, then divided by -1. That's the last thing you check. If it's not negative, then you're already done. Your answer is done. Alright, so those are the 3 steps that you got to make sure you use in order to solve linear equations, okay? So first thing again, identify your variable you're trying to solve for, then you start to get it by itself. You isolate it, move everything to the other side by using your operations, so you got to make sure you know what's what here, okay? And then step 3 would be, if it is negative, then divide it by -1, okay? So I'm going to do some examples so y'all can see, and then I'll let y'all work on your own, okay? So let's say, make another line here, go examples. Okay, so example 1, let's say I have u equals x minus k, right? And I want to be able to solve for x. Okay, so if it's u equals x minus k, I want to be able to solve for x, right? So I want to identify what I'm trying to solve for, okay? I'm trying to solve for x, right? So I'm going to underline it. That's what I'm trying to solve for. Okay, so I need to, step 1 says identify what you're trying to solve for. So I'm trying to solve for x, right? Step 2 says move everything away from it, okay? Well, on this side of it, there's a negative k or minus k with it, okay? Then I got to look at my inverse operations. So I notice that it's minus k, which is subtraction, okay? So what would be my inverse? Huh? Addition, right? So if it's minus k, I have to add k. And the same thing, right? Whatever I did to one side of the equation, I gotta do it to the other side. Okay? So if I added k over here, I add k over here. Alright? So now what I would end up with, I have u plus k equals x. Okay? And x is not negative, right? So that's it. I'm done. Okay? So x equals u plus k. Right? That would be my answer. Okay, that's all we're doing. Alright, don't freak out because there are many different variables. Alright, but you gotta identify which one you're trying to solve for. Okay? So let's do another one. Step 2, or example 2. Let's say I have G equals C times A. Okay? And I want to solve for A. Okay? So I'm just looking at this again, right? I want to solve for A, so I need to, let's just box it up. We can box up A. So I need to box up A, because that's what I'm trying to solve for. Alright? So now, it's C times A, right? I need to get A by itself, so C times A. So what's the inverse of multiplication? Division, right? So C times A, so the inverse of multiplication will be division. So I have to divide this by C. And again, whatever I did to one side, I have to do to the other side. So that cancels out. So over here you have G divided by C equals A. Right, and it's not a negative A, so that's it. That's all we're doing. Okay. All right. Do a couple more examples. Example 3. Let's say I have A times M equals N plus P, and I'm trying to solve for A. A times M equals N plus P, and I'm trying to solve for A. All right, so now, again, I gotta identify what I'm trying to solve for. I'm trying to solve for A, so I'm gonna box it up. Okay, it's A times M, right? So my inverse operation would be division. So I have to divide by M, right? Whatever I did to one side, do it to the other side. Okay, so my M's cancel out. So now I'm left with A equals N plus P all divided by M. Okay? So like on your test and stuff, that's what the answer choice would look just like this. Okay? Or we can write it like this. I'm going to write both ways so you can see it. A equals N divided by M plus P divided by M. Right? It's the same thing, they just broke it up. Okay? So you can see it either way. Alright? So this whole thing is correct. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, so I have negative 3x plus 2c equals negative 3. Okay? And I'm trying to solve for x. Okay? Again, I'm trying to get x by itself, so I'm going to box it up. Okay? We're always going to move the term without the variable first, right? So it's plus 2c, okay? It's addition, so the opposite of that would be my subtraction. So I want to subtract 2c, okay? Whatever I did to one side, I got to do to the other side. So subtract 2c on both sides, right? I didn't mess with the negative 3x, so it comes down. So I have negative 3x, 2c minus c cancels out, equals negative 3 minus 2c. Right? Because you can't do anything with the numbers because they're not like terms. So I just put negative 3 minus 2c. Okay? Again, I still trying to solve for the x. So I got to box it up. Okay, again, this is negative 3 times x, right? The inverse operation of multiplication would be division. So I want to divide by negative 3. Okay? Whatever I did to one side, I got to do to the other side. Okay, so my negative 3's cancel out. X equals, okay? I'm gonna break it up here so we can see it. Okay, so we have negative 3 divided by negative 3. Then you have negative 2c divided by negative 3. Okay? So that turns into, and that's not simplified yet. Okay, negative 3 divided by negative 3 gives me positive 1. Okay, negative 2c divided by negative 3, that turns into a positive because it's negative negative, so it's positive 2c divided by 3. Okay, so all I did was simplify that. So it's negative 3 divided by negative 3, that turned into 1, because the negative and negative turned into 1. Negative and negative turned into positive. 2c divided by 3 just comes down right here. Okay, so that's what your equation would look like.